Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List is one of the most powerful films ever made. Emotional, haunting, unforgettable. But behind the camera, strange stories, tough choices, and surprising details shaped this masterpiece. From shocking casting twists to Spielberg's unusual coping habits, here are weird facts about Schindler's List you've probably never heard. Spielberg didn't want to direct it at first. You'd think Spielberg jumped at the chance to make Schindler's List. In truth, he avoided it for years. Universal had the rights in the 1980s, but Spielberg offered it to Scorsese, Polanski, even Sidney Pollack. He didn't feel ready for something this heavy. Polanski declined because the Holocaust was too personal. He survived it as a child. Scorsese nearly made it until Spielberg reclaimed it, realizing only he had the pull to bring it to life. Here's the weirdest part. Spielberg directed Jurassic Park at the same time. By day, he edited dinosaurs. By night, he cut Holocaust atrocities. That bizarre double life nearly broke him emotionally. Yet, it also gave the world two cinematic classics in the same year, proof of Spielberg's insane versatility. What started as a film he didn't want to make became the most defining work of his career. It was filmed almost entirely in black and white. Black and white movies were long out of fashion in the 1990s, but Spielberg went old school. He wanted Schindler's List to look like historical footage, raw, documentary-like, stripped of Hollywood gloss. The weirdest part is that he didn't stick to it completely. Twice, he broke the rule: the little girl in the red coat and the graveside finale. The red coat became one of cinema's most haunting symbols, innocence amid horror, the world ignoring genocide in plain sight. That tiny splash of color is burned into audiences' memories decades later. Spielberg said it was his way of showing how impossible it was for the world not to notice, and yet people still did nothing. By denying color everywhere else, those few flashes became devastatingly powerful. What should have been a limitation turned into a stroke of genius. The cast spoke English with heavy accents. Here's something weird. A German-Polish Holocaust story shot almost entirely in English. Spielberg insisted on it. Why? He worried subtitles would break the emotional connection. Instead, he had the cast Liam Neeson, Ben Kingsley, Ralph Fiennes speak accented English. At first, critics thought it would feel fake, but the strange compromise worked. The accents grounded the performances while letting audiences stay immersed without reading text. Ben Kingsley later said it gave the film authenticity without creating distance. And here's the trick. After 10 minutes, most viewers don't even notice. It's proof that emotional truth matters more than strict accuracy. Spielberg risked being called unrealistic, but the gamble paid off. The accents fade, the story doesn't, and that's why the film works as well today as it did in 1993. Liam Neeson was a surprise casting choice. Oskar Schindler almost looked very different. Big stars like Warren Beatty, Kevin Costner, and Mel Gibson all wanted the role. But Spielberg saw Liam Neeson in a Broadway play and was struck by his presence. Neeson wasn't a household name, he was mostly a stage actor with a few film credits. That's exactly why Spielberg chose him. He wanted audiences to see Schindler, not a celebrity. It was a weird risk, considering the pressure on this film, but Neeson's commanding voice, physicality, and surprising warmth nailed the role. His performance earned him an Oscar nomination and catapulted his career. The irony, a role that many thought needed a Hollywood star, worked better with someone largely unknown. Today, it's hard to imagine anyone else as Schindler. Neeson's understated power is a big reason the film feels timeless. Spielberg directed without storyboards. Spielberg usually storyboards every detail, but not this time. On Schindler's List, he abandoned his usual process. Instead, he shot the film like a documentary. Handheld cameras, minimal rehearsals, and little pre-planning. He wanted everything to feel spontaneous, like history caught in the moment. The weird part is that this chaos actually made the movie more authentic. Scenes were raw, sometimes filmed in one take, with shaky camera movements that felt like a witness trying to keep up. Spielberg even avoided telling actors exactly what he wanted, forcing them into real reactions. That unpolished approach stripped away Hollywood polish and made the film feel disturbingly real. It was a huge departure for him, but it worked. Schindler's List doesn't feel staged, it feels lived. And that's why audiences often describe it as an experience, not just a movie. Spielberg refused to take a salary. Here's one of the strangest financial decisions in Hollywood history. Spielberg refused payment. He said profiting from a Holocaust story would be blood money. Instead, all earnings went to Holocaust education and remembrance projects. Later, Spielberg founded the Shoah Foundation, recording over 55 survivor testimonies, a priceless historical archive. Most directors would pocket millions on a hit like this. Spielberg gave it away. And yet, that decision gave Schindler's List weight beyond cinema. It became a humanitarian mission. The weirdest part? Despite being 1993's biggest critical success, it's one of the rare Spielberg films he never personally profited from. For him, the story wasn't about box office, it was about responsibility. And in the process, he left behind something far more valuable than money: a permanent record of history and survival. Actors struggled with emotional fatigue. Filming wasn't just exhausting, it was traumatizing. The cast relived atrocities daily, often in the real locations where they happened. Ralph Fiennes, playing Eamon Goeth, was so chilling that extras avoided him off set. Survivors who visited the set were shaken by how much he resembled the real Goeth. Spielberg cried almost every day of filming, and the actors were emotionally drained. To keep spirits alive, Spielberg arranged satellite calls from Robin Williams, who cracked jokes and told stories to lift the crew's mood. The weird part is how this combination of trauma and laughter shaped the production. The emotional fatigue gave performances a raw edge, but the bursts of humor kept people from collapsing under the weight of the subject. It was a strange but necessary balance, and it helped turn unbearable pain into unforgettable cinema. Ralph Fiennes gained weight to play Eamon Goeth. Ralph Fiennes wasn't just terrifying as Goeth, he transformed physically. Spielberg asked him to gain nearly 30 pounds to reflect Goeth's indulgent lifestyle. The weird twist? Survivors later confirmed Fiennes looked disturbingly like the real Goeth. One even said seeing him in costume felt like reliving trauma. Fiennes' performance earned him an Oscar nomination, but it was so convincing that some crew members admitted they were genuinely unsettled around him. The added weight gave him an aura of arrogance and cruelty that made his presence overpowering. It's chilling to think how a simple physical change pushed the performance from frightening to unforgettable. Sometimes the scariest villains in cinema are the ones who feel just a little too real. Fiennes didn't just act Goeth, he embodied him, and that's what makes the role so horrifying. The Red Coat Girl was based on reality. One of the most haunting images in the film, the girl in the red coat, was inspired by survivor testimony. Witnesses recalled seeing children in bright clothing during mass deportations, vivid flashes of color in a sea of gray horror. Spielberg used that image to symbolize innocence the world ignored. When audiences see her coat later among corpses, it hits like a gut punch. The weirdest part? The young actress didn't realize the importance of her role until much later. For her, it was just a day on set. For viewers, it became the film's most unforgettable symbol. It proved how a tiny detail, a splash of red in a black and white world, could tell an entire story about denial, blindness, and loss. It's strange how one image overshadowed entire set pieces. But it's also why Schindler's List lingers in memory long after the credits. Spielberg watched comedy each night to cope. Directing Schindler's List nearly broke Spielberg. To cope, he watched Seinfeld reruns every single night. After filming gas chambers and executions, he needed the sitcom's absurd humor just to sleep. Cast members sometimes joined him, grateful for the relief. It sounds bizarre, Holocaust by day, a show about nothing by night, but it was necessary. Spielberg admitted he might not have finished the film otherwise. The weird part is how perfectly this contrast shows the human need for balance. Out of unimaginable darkness, laughter kept the crew going. That odd routine helped sustain one of the most important films ever made. It's a strange reminder that even geniuses need comic relief. And sometimes the silliest things make the heaviest work possible. Without those laughs, we might not have the masterpiece that is Schindler's List.